What's up guys, making another video. Today this will be a review video for the Autosports Engineering twin fuel pump hanger. This one is for 350Zs. Those that own 350Zs know that we don't have too much on the market for us for wanting to run two pumps. As far as I know, actually, this is the only current product on the market for us to allow us to run two fuel pumps. I am making this video pretty much as a review and giving my own perspective of putting this together and pretty much going through it. I haven't run it in my car yet because it's still in pieces. I'm still putting it back together. I will follow up with another video using this and pretty much doing a review, making sure that it's working properly. I do have faith in the product and the pumps as well. It is well built. We'll get into that. Like, the material quality is pretty great. The design, depending on how you put it together, it works, but for some, it can be a little tedious. Personally, I had not the greatest experience trying to put this together. It did take me a while. It is different for everyone. I'm not gonna really go too in-depth on that, but personally, this took me a while to assemble. I did have a bit of an issue with it. We will get into that. So for those that don't know what this is, basically, if you're looking to run more than one fuel pump, I have twin Walbro 450 pumps. I'm boosting my Z and I'm looking to do a huge upgrade for the fuel system to support the higher power. So this is a great option. Running two pumps instead of one big one is all you will ever need, in my opinion. So getting into it, you can come in to here. You can see the branding. So it has 2 feed and 1 return port. You can opt for -6 or -8. Not sure if there's any other ones for like -10, but I think that's a little overkill. Stock, it does have regular O-rings for the ports. I'm not sure if they were Viton or not, so I went ahead and swapped them out for my own. The bulkhead connectors have aluminum pins in them. So CGM Motorsports actually offers a kit for this specific product. So he did not fabricate this assembly, but he does offer bits and pieces for it, mainly this part right here. What he offers is essentially the same thing. It's the same design, but it uses copper pins. So when it's running a high amount of power through this, it's not gonna melt or overheat and, you know, put too much power onto something that it can't handle. So really great product from CGM Motorsports. Not sponsored by anyone by any means. Again, this is just me doing me and trying to make a video out of it. I have it supported because I don't wanna rest it on the ports. So I do have -6 all around for both my feed and return. They are looped, so you have your on the other side back here. Gotta rotate it around. So we'll get into this. So you have your 2 feeds and your return port. I do recommend using PTFE hoses, which are these. For this piece, I did have to use some regular fuel hose due to the placement of the fuel level sensor. There's a bracket right here, and due to having multiple style fuel level sensors per the owner of the company that designed this, he did make this generic bracket to fit the 3 different styles. So I can understand it, but you do have to work around it a little bit. So the wires that I used, the pink and black ones here, I had to make new ones from scratch. So they are extended and they are 14 gauge. But right here you can kind of see the return hose is slightly on it. Not enough to break it, but it's definitely bent a little bit, but that's what you had to do to make it work. And we'll get more into that here soon. These hoses are curved from one end to another end. If you watch ASE's tutorial video of how to set this up, it's pretty much almost identical to that. So I wanted to show you the ports because you want to start on one side. You're going to loop it around to the other side, and likewise. And you're going to want to feed your wires in between where you can. So the port I have right here, and the two pumps are directly above it. There's an Allen set screw on the back side right here, and it allows you to rotate the assembly as needed. So I do have it clocked slightly. So it's not directly above the ports. It's slightly clocked. So do keep that in mind. I do have, to make it somewhat easy, I do have my fuel level sensor slightly offset between the return port and one of the feed ports, having the arm facing outward. Because if I did it the other way, it would hit here if I had it over there, if that makes sense. So that's like a way to zero out for starters. So this is the best way, in my opinion, to have this set up from start. And then you can just clock it as needed. So you can kind of see the set screw right there. Now, getting into this screw, this is where it got really tricky for me. So with this being said right here, the rod that's in here, for me personally, the design was too short to fit the pumps and be able to have this fuel hose to fit. So what I had to do was get a longer bolt that was about 1 inch longer than the original one. I'll show you. So this is the original screw right here. I got one from a parts store. It's the same thread. It's 3/8 by 24 thread, fine thread. And I got one that was about 1 inch longer than this. And what I did was I cut some fuel submersible hose. I cut about 1 inch of it off, right? And I threaded it through the hole where it goes. And you can kind of see right in there, right here, it gave me a little 1/2 inch spacer. Now, if you're wondering why I did that, the fuel tank is measured at 8 inches in depth. You want the fuel socks, you want from the bulkhead to the bottom of the pumps. So to give you an idea, if this is the top of the tank, you want it to sit 8 inches into the tank. Any more, and it's gonna protrude. Because if this is like the bottom of the tank, and it's more than 8 inches, it's gonna protrude. So it sits directly at 8 inches, and I can measure that for you here in a bit in the video. So with that being said, I wanted the pumps to be flush to fit within the 8 inches, because if I pushed them up anymore, it would exceed the 8 inches. But at the same time, I needed space for these hoses to sit. Because what would happen is these hoses would get squished between the housing of the pump and the hose itself. So I needed that 1/2 inch gap more to push the pumps up. And on top of that, I also needed the space for this one. This was the biggest thing, because if this wasn't the case, this is honestly what made me need the spacer. Because without the spacer, for one, these wouldn't even sit flush because it would hit the hose. But if it did sit flush, it would be less than 8 inches. So I would have room to push these up. But it still wasn't enough to fit this. So I made the little spacer, and it allowed me to have space right here and sit these flush. because earlier, 1/2 inch lower, I do have pictures and I have them posted. This piece right here was sitting about right here, and this port would come up to like right here, and there was absolutely no way I could get this return port to fit. So that's why I made the spacer. I'm not saying that yours will be like that too, but I can definitely tell you there's no other way for me to set that up. If you do run into that issue, again, all I did is I went to the parts store. I found this bolt. It is, no kidding, it is the exact same like style and everything. Same thread. Like I said, it was 3/8 by 24 fine thread. Allen key insert. It was the same thickness and whatnot. It's a very generic bolt. And I just have some fuel submersible hose because it's really thick. And when you tighten it down, it pretty much mushroomed. And when it mushroomed, it made that, it went from 1 inch to 1/2 inch. And I torqued it down to 10 foot-pounds. So it's snug, it's not rotating, it's not, you know, bouncing up and down. It's snug, it's not gonna go anywhere. And it gave me that perfect gap, and then it's fuel submersible hose. So, you know, it's not gonna deteriorate. It's sturdy, it was a perfect, you know, fix for what I had to do. These hoses, the PTFE, you have to use this. Before I did the spacer trick, I tried to get 8 inches of fuel hose and just like wrap it around. I couldn't, it didn't work because it kinked. Because the bends were so sharp, it was like this, and it would kink. So that didn't work. I spent $60 on these hoses trying to get them to work, and it didn't work, so it was a bust. So another thing that happened, these hoses that I have right here actually are from CGM Motorsports. The original ones that I got from the barb fittings did not work at all. I can show you right here. The original barb fittings from this pump that came with this pump were too thick. The barb itself was like almost thicker than this PTFE hose. And I tried to heat it up, lube it, it would not work. And I pretty much like destroyed this hose. I went through like 3 or 4 of these hoses trying to get them to work. So if you run through that same struggle, CGM Motorsports, again, I'm not sponsored, I'm just telling you what I did. They do have these lines prefabricated. So it's a -6 port with a special hose clamp that gives a circular clamping force. Very well made, and it's a PTFE hose. And it was perfect. That was the big reason why I actually used this. 1, I couldn't fit it, and 2, it just wouldn't go onto the barbs. So when I got that, it kinked, and I was like trying these again, and it still wasn't working. So I hit up Charles at CGM Motorsports, and he hooked me up with a few of these hoses, and it worked perfect. So I just put those back on. I did use this silicone spray on the threads. It kind of helps it when you're tightening it, not to like destroy the threads and keep it tight. So I did one hose, or I did one pump at a time. And I kind of clocked the fuel pumps. What I did is I took a Sharpie, and before I even put the pumps in, I kind of rotated them around to see what would best fit these hoses. Because when you get in here, if the barb for the fuel pump was like right here, it wouldn't have worked. And if it came over here, it wouldn't have worked because of the barb fitting. So once I found the spot, like I just bent up the hose before putting this all the way down to get like a general idea. I marked it, and I did it for both sides. I erased it because I didn't want it to, you know, stay there. But I marked both sides. Once I kind of like routed the hoses to see which one would work better, Personally, if you're viewing it from here, set up the same way I have it. I have my right pump. Again, this is upside down. I have my right pump go over, so right here. And then the left pump went under for this X. I tried to do it the other way and it just wouldn't let me because it was hitting on this housing. But the way I have it set up right now is perfect. So this left port right here lapped over the right port. I know that sounds confusing. Again, here's a better picture of it. And then zoomed in again. Try to get these wires out of the way. So, and if you're looking down, here's a better view of where this connection is in reference to the pumps. Because again, you're gonna want to clock this. Just make sure you retorque it down when you do. You don't want it to come loose because it could unscrew and come off, it could rotate. You don't want any of that. You want it all secure. And again, with these, you can tighten them with the Allen keys. You want them loose for while you're adjusting. When you're doing, if you do have to use a spacer like I did, what you want to do is use a scale. And you want to make sure that you have your height set properly. So as you can see, maybe not. Let's get the lighting better. Try to help with the lighting. It's not the best in my garage. Here you go. Right at 8 inches. That's with the sock inflated. So like, bend this tab down. I'm going off the bulkhead because this is how it's gonna sit into the tank. Right at 8 inches. So that's right where you want it. Because that means it's gonna pick up all of the fuel from the bottom of the tank. You don't wanna start the pumps early. Especially if the fuel is swooshing around. So yeah, anyways, back to what I was talking about. That's how I have the hoses routed for this. Again, with CGM Motorsports, he did supply different connectors. I did pin it myself. With these, you have to put the terminal pins on yourself. When I say terminal pins, I mean these. These go on to these harnesses. So this comes pre-assembled if you get these pumps. Again, these are Walbro 450 pumps. And then you just put the terminal pins on the ends and then they go into this. I do have a video that I made showing how to do that, so I'm not gonna go too in depth, but I kept my grounds on one side, which are black, and then the power on the other side, which are pink. The two middle ones are my fuel level sensor wires. They're not exactly a power and ground. It's just, that's a whole complicated thing. Anyways, so that goes over that. Went over the rod, I went over the fuel pump clocking, the housing clocking. This as well, there is a snap ring in here. So if you do need to rotate this, you can. And that will allow you to clock this connector in case the wires get in the way of the hoses, because it is tight. So I did mine slightly to get this one to pass, because if it was rotated this way, that hose wouldn't be able to clear it. And if it did, it would chafe. I had slight chafing. Sorry, my video cut out. But anyways, right there, I had a slight chafe, but it's all right. It's fine to be submersed. It's not gonna chafe anymore. With these hoses, what I use is a heat gun and a bit of this lube. I lubed the barbs and I just used a heat gun on the hoses. I just heat it up all around and a little bit on the inside. You can get it hot, but you don't want it to the point where it loses its structural integrity, because it will do this. So you don't want to do that because then it's just never going to go on. It'll never be the same. So there is a sweet spot for heating up these hoses. They work great. The benefit of this over regular hose is this will not kink unless, I mean, I don't even know if it could ever kink. I have these bent as about as sharp as you could have it. And that's not kinked. This, however, if you work it too hard, it's gonna kink. It's gonna flatten out and then you're going to starve your fuel pumps. So just keep that in mind. And then there's different style C-clamps that you can, or hose clamps that you can use. I just use normal ones. Tighten them about as tight as they'll go, a little more. They're really not going to go anywhere. I'm not too concerned about it. Some people believe that if you use these like old school style ones, it's going to leak. I'll let you know if mine does, but I believe I will be fine. So yes, the socks, they are going to overlap a bit. You can take it off this pin and put it outward, but that pin right there, there's like a little ring with teeth that grab it. You want to use that because that's what keeps the sock on it, is that smaller one. So they do sit on top of each other. It's fine. It will work perfectly fine. You just have to put the pumps in one at a time to like overlap them. A big thing about this hanger is you just gotta be patient with it when assembling it. It does work, like I said. It's just potentially tedious. I know some people have set these up without too much of a headache. I had a headache. I had a very big headache. This took me about a month or two because I had to wait for hoses and whatnot to come in, and it's just constantly trying to figure out what was going on and to realize it was that gap that I had. So it's all over for me. It is finished. I'm very excited to use this. Thank you, Autosports Engineering, for designing this. You are the one and only for the platform. I do personally wish that there is a variation. If you had, my only like suggestion to the owner that made this and designed it, it is pretty well designed. I do understand this, but I do wish he had a option to have like 3 different designs for this bracket, depending on what hanger you have, and like to offer like kind of like a pamphlet or like pictures showing what style you have, and you could select what bracket according to that. So that way you could like bolt it in or something like that, or have like a bracket where it can slide into it and like snap in. I don't know, like I'm not an engineer, but that's my only thing about it. I mean, I do have a good fuse that ties in it. It's not going to go anywhere, but it would give me better peace of mind. I'm keeping this car for a very long time. I don't plan on getting rid of it. And the last thing I want is for something to go out just due to limited engineering, if that makes sense. I just want this to last a long time. I do believe it will. These are all quality parts, all very well made. But yeah, that is pretty much my overview of it. I would recommend this product to everyone if you are willing to be patient with it. I'm not saying it will give you issues when putting it together, but there's the potential. I'm not the only one. I know a lot of shops that install these can do it like with ease because they've done tons of them. But I spent a very good amount of time trying to make it work how it came, and I just came to the conclusion that that was not happening for me. So I found a way to modify it. It does work. No hate to the designer. I totally get why he did what he did. But this is just how I came to it. And this video is for those that are in my seat that might be a little confused on how to put these together. Biggest thing on this is make sure that your hoses are tight. Make sure that your Allen set screws are tightened, all 3 of them, the 2 for the pumps and then the 1 for the housing. Make sure your fuel level sensor is secure and these tabs do not break off. And if you do decide to pull these off, go ahead and throw some silicone spray on it. And if you want, it doesn't hurt, because I don't know if the original ones are Viton O-rings, but if you're running ethanol or just gasoline in general, which we all are, you want to use Viton O-rings. They are fuel submersible. They can be in fuel and not dry out, crack out, and leak. I've seen a few friends of mine have this product and the ports leaked on them. So I did swap out some Viton O-rings just to be safe. And again, CGM Motorsports does make a few pieces for this to make it a bit safer to run for the higher voltage. Next up for me are these Dishworks relay kits for the fuel pumps. It's gonna be pretty straightforward. On the exterior end of the bulkhead connector is the harness, and I get to splice into that. So I'm about to deploy soon for a Air Force deployment, so I'm probably not gonna make that video until, I don't know, later on in the year. Not sure how long it's gonna be for me. But when I do get back, that is next. I'm very excited for that. I'm really not. And then after that, making my own fuel lines, and then turbo kit, a few other things. But I know this is a very highlighted product for the community, and I know there are not too many videos on it. If you do have any questions, feel free to hit up the owner of this. He is more than happy to give you brief help on it, and if you aren't understanding what he's saying, he does offer to have you ship them in to kind of have them assembled. But he does have a tutorial video. I would follow that video before this, because that is from the maker himself. This video is just kind of like a piggyback off of his, in case things aren't kind of lining up. This is what I did to make it work, and it works. So if you want to contact me, feel free. If you have any questions, I can answer them in the comments, or you can DM me on Instagram or whatever. Not sponsored by anyone. If you do have any questions, hit up the owner. If you're not liking what he says, you can hit me up, hit up a few other people that are running this. It works, but it takes work to make it work. Thank you for watching. I will be making more videos in the future. Stay tuned. Bye.